Hey traders, Nick here. I wanted to recap the week ending in 413. So the scoreboard for Friday was red, minus 0.4-ish percent, some less, some more. And it was, even though it was red, there was a lot of good things that went on, and let me run through those good things. First of all, the week overall was green. And it was a strong week in spite of a lot of bad news. And more importantly, the VIX closed red 2 times, obviously for the week, and 2 times on bad days when the markets were falling, the VIX was also falling. Today, Friday, the VIX was down big. So here's the thing. There was an air of the sky's falling, yet bears couldn't keep the VIX green. In fact, it was down all day except for a late bounce. So that's a sign on the sentiment shift that I shared with you earlier this week. All right, so the late day close was also strong. I thought we were going to whoosh down into the close, people closing ahead of the weekend. Nobody wants to go over the weekend with fears of strikes in Syria. On the contrary, they closed strong, and the VIX fell into the close. So there was no real fear evident. So that's good news. That goes towards my sentiment shift thing. All right, so there was a rip in bonds today. TLT had a good day today. And that usually is bad for markets because it's usually, typically, they trade in opposite directions, stocks and bonds. Always you hear that. So today, anytime bulls wanted to rally, there would be a few big, strong green ticks in bonds, so we were range bound. A perfect example would be if you looked at Apple intraday. It had a lot of opportunities. Let me see here, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. It had a lot of opportunities, it doesn't show it very well, to break out throughout the day, but it stayed lidded. I mean, it was like you could have used a ruler and just drew a line. The good news is that Apple was green, but it failed to break out. But still, this is a constructive chart. And again, I shared that with you that I see a lot of these constructive charts. Higher lows, getting squeezed, knocking on a roof. If they break the roof, they rise above. However, this also brings about, okay, what if they break this trend line? Then they shoot and probably retest the recent low. So technically speaking, I like what's going on. Now, we need headlines to stay as mild, or more importantly, if they're not as mild, that the reactions are like, whatever, just another bad headline. That's the sentiment shift I'm talking about. Okay, so they were bad scoreboard on Friday, good scoreboard for the whole week, good things inside that bad scoreboard on Friday. So left me hoping for good things to come. So what about next week? Next week is we start with Monday. Obviously, if nothing happens in the weekend, meaning if we're not at war with Russia, because if we strike Syria, I think it's not a big deal as long as we don't kill a lot of Russians, and then the Russians will have to retaliate. So if that is not there, and if we have no new White House news on the Trump lawsuits or whatever, Cohen lawsuits, then we should see a relief pop on Monday. Things didn't fall off the wheels, and therefore, thank goodness for that, they'd be buying or less selling, so that brings back the equilibrium between buying and selling in favor of the bulls. That is one thing. However, we do have a few things. I think we have a retail report, but all eyes will be on banks again. Friday, the big drag on the market were banks. We had several report, Wells Fargo, Citi, JP Morgan, PNC, and they all rallied, and then they all fell really, really hard. That's the XLF. It was down 1.5%. That's a big red candle. JP Morgan, also down big. They all rallied in the morning. Bank of America was green. I booked my calls. I tell you, book profits often, and then I went long Bank of America later. I'll write it up in the write-up, not in the video. So the idea is that maybe Bank of America earnings on Monday morning before the market opens, maybe they'll reverse that. Bank of America is cheap. I don't think people are expecting, they all delivered, by the way, on expectations, but there were some soft numbers on as far as trading desks. I don't think Bank of America has a big trading desk, and I don't think we're expecting much of them on that front. it's all about deposits with them. So let's see what they say. The Netflix reports after the market closes, so there'll be chatter about Netflix too. All right, so this is, by the way, side note, Netflix. Hard to be short this, but if you're short it, then you might want to think about this chart. Netflix. Okay, so back to the point at hand. Monday, again, we will have a relief pop if there's nothing that happened over the weekend, and we will all be watching Bank of America and the banks. I am long. I'll put it in the write-up when I'm long. Okay, so this is the start of the week. We'll update the rest of the week as it goes. We have the Fed beige book and a whole bunch of Fed heads talking, and these guys are important because they're going to move rates, which will move bonds, and it depends on which way it go. We also have some retail sales and other sales that other reports are going to come out, so all will count. So there are a few trades I'm going to share in the write-up, but not in the video. I can tell you that RIG was a big win. I think back in March I shared on the right here a trade for RIG, and it developed into a massive rally, and so I booked the profits, but I am still long RIG one way, and I'll share it in the write-up. Why am I excited about RIG? Because if I go to a weekly chart, this is a giant technical setup in several ways. A lower, this trend line and this cup and handle thing. Technical issues. I don't know what's going on with their fundamentals. This is a purely technical thing, and I'll share it in the write-up, and I'll tell you what kind of conviction I have. All right, so what about levels? Levels are important. Back to the S&P, back to the daily chart. I've been sharing these two scenarios, those two purple scenarios, which is basically, I'm calling them 2615 versus 2715. This is the S&P minis, so think SPX. And we are bumping along my upside scenario so far, and I still favor that based on the fundamentals, provided we don't get a new shoe to drop, a new headline, okay? So I do like the higher lows bumping on this technical for the shoot out to 2715-ish. But this scenario is still very on the table, very much on the table. I can promise you that. So the downside scenario is available, and all it takes is one bad headline for us to break this nice trend and come to here and retest these lows against this nice white zone right here. Okay, so these are the levels here, real quick, easy levels. I don't think I need to share any levels on the other ones. Well, let's just look at the S&P. Their other ones are going to play along. So if I look at the DIA, I'm long the DIA because of this potential technical and reversion to the mean trade. This one moves fast, but you got to have no tariff wars because Bank of America, Boeing, which is BA, is a big component of it. Caterpillar is a big component of it, and they're both easy targets for tariffs. Okay, I think we saw some bad news on Boeing today, so it was down 2.5%. Sorry, this is BAC. Bad habit. Never mind. Boeing. Come on. Boom. Okay, Boeing was down, 2.5%. Okay, so, but still constructive price action. Fundamentally, it's still a good company. Okay, so DIA, I'm long it, but tight leash. Okay, I'll share that in the write-up as well. All right, next week I think we also have some things going on with biotech, so I'm really happy about that. Maybe we'll get nice pops. These guys are about 20% of the NASDAQ, so that'll be important. How did FANG fare this week? I've got some latency in my charts here. This is FANG. That's the FANG gang, Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, and Google, both tickers. Transports, the airlines are kind of under pressure, so there is upside potential, but they need a swift kick in the fanny, and I think it's because oil is still rallying. Oil is in a breakout mode. Technically, this is a breakout mode. I don't favor this. Fundamentally, I think we had some Saudi Arabia news, with rockets flying overhead. But technically now something is taken over. This is head and shoulders inverse, which is bullish. And usually they want to rally that much. So, this is possible. 69 is possible. It depends on the Headlines. Even in the face of dollar, which was okay, so it wasn't like a falling dollar that was allowing for that. So Bitcoin, I don't know if you're interested. Nice bounce, but I'm not one to trade it. Okay, and this is gold. Still, I favor an upside move in gold, but based on a weekly chart. So something along this line. I do have calls, but they're under pressure. So, it's a weekly trade, so I'm not panicking over it. Okay, so this has been the recap. If you have any questions, let me know. Nick signing out. Oh, you can reach me at selfspreads@gmail.com. So the recap was a good week, day on Friday, but a good week with good things to come if headlines let us have that.